Happy Friday, everybody. It is another time for another show. Round the Nation right here, TYT Nation. Jeff Waldorf here with you. We got a great show for today. A lot of different news to talk about. Some good, some illuminating news. So, fascinating. We'll be talking about, of course, Mike Pompeo. That's dangerous news. As well as North Korea. That's possibly good news. We're going to talk about the Democrats trying to push out progressives. Fascinating tape on that. We're gonna go through that. We're gonna break that down, and then a congressional chaplain gets kicked out by Paul Ryan. Gee, I wonder why. Interesting. We'll talk about that, and then finally, we have a good story to end the week on. So, interesting. It's going to be an interesting day because, like I said, I don't have completely disastrous news. Which, I mean, don't get me wrong, there is plenty to choose from, but I decided to go basically leave you with some good news for once. Because I know a lot of you have been asking for that, that we go a little heavy on the negative stories here. With all the bad news going on, it's not really a surprise. But hey, we're going to do some positive stuff, a couple of positive things. So, I think you guys will like it. All right. Anyway, if you haven't already, please share the stream. Very, very important that you do so. That helps the show. It helps me a great deal. So please share. Sharing is caring. Also, give us a like if you enjoy our video. If you enjoy the stream. Also, if you really like the stream, you want to help us out, there's always the super chat, where we will read your messages. I will read your messages, through the super chat. So I know a lot of you guys have been using it and it's been awesome. So thank you. I appreciate that. Other ways to support me, of course, to support the show, I should say, is through Patreon, patreon.com/TUNTNation. It keeps all the lights on. So anyway, so let's jump into our first story. More good news. We'll talk about something good. Okay. All right. So we may have some good news coming out of the Korean Peninsula. Turns out North Korean leader Kim Jong-un and South Korean President Moon Jae-in have finally agreed to end the Korean War and pursue what they call the complete denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. So, again, that is fantastic news. And look, again, big positive story. It's so positive. I watched the video, right, of where Kim Jong-un actually crossed the border into South Korea the first time. And they literally held hands. Holy crap. Here I am pressing buttons. They literally held hands. That's amazing. That's like never happened before. So, look, again, really, really interesting. And really, really good to see. Now, they announced plans to replace the 1953 armistice that ended hostilities with a peace treaty by the end of the year. So, look, a lot of people might not actually be aware, but North and South Korea have actually been at war since the 50s. And technically, we have also been at war with North Korea. Now, that might actually change. And that would be a welcome development. That is, unless, of course, our idiot president happens to mess it up. But so far, so good. I mean, you got to cross your fingers and, hold on to your lucky rabbit's foot or whatever the hell you do for luck. Hopefully, he doesn't fuck it up. Now, look, Trump did weigh in on this on Twitter, of course, because that's how he communicates. He said, Korean War to end. The United States and all of its great people should be very proud of what is now taking place in Korea. Okay, you know what? That tweet is absolutely fine. I have no problems with that. You know what? We are very proud of what's going on in North Korea. and we hope that it will lead to a lasting peace and denuclearization in the peninsula. Now, of course, we're also cautiously optimistic, and of course, there is reason to be. Past agreements, of course, have not panned out. There's been some reneging on other agreements and nuclear tests and all that. So, look, we're not going in there blind. We know that there's the possibility that Kim Jong-un could actually not mean it. However, nonetheless, that's no reason not to entertain the possibility of peace. So that's good. And I think this is an excellent development to what's going on in North Korea. So now what's interesting here. Well, actually, you know what? Let me go to some quotes here. Now, Kim Jong-un, of course, in an unbelievable statement, I know I just did that, he says, "We have agreed to share a firm determination to open a new era in which all Korean people enjoy prosperity and happiness on a peaceful land without war." Moon said of their agreement to seek a peace treaty represented a, quote, fundamental change for the peninsula, and of course the leaders had agreed to hold military talks next month to seek what they call a phased disarmament, without, of course, adding more details. Now, the funny thing this time is the United States isn't necessarily as involved in this as we have been before. Now, we've got some very, very high bars. We've got some very high standards, or at least we traditionally have. And we still have those demands. Nonetheless, this has been more of South Korea and North Korea trying to engage in more direct talks without having to go to the United States. So I think that shows our diminishing role in world affairs. Now, you could say, oh, that's a terrible thing, or you could say that's actually a decent thing, because when it comes down to it, I don't believe that we need to be the world's policeman. I think we spend far too much blood and treasure trying to police other countries, invade other countries, and basically stick our nose everywhere. So if they can do this without our involvement necessarily, okay, or with limited United States involvement, okay, you know what? I'll take that as a positive. I mean, look, here's the thing, right? Yes, there is some U.S. involvement. Of course, Donald Trump will be meeting with Kim Jong-un privately. And who knows, maybe they'll get along, and maybe that will help with the peace process as well. So, hopefully. Now, hopefully they can hammer out a deal, and hopefully Trump either doesn't mess it up or helps it along, which is possible, or Kim Jong-un doesn't renege on the deal as well. So, look, we're gonna have to keep our eye on this one and hope for the best. So, hey, fingers crossed. Let's hope they can get it done. Okay. So now let's go from that to terrible news. I'm going to bring you down, and then I'm going to bring you back up. So we'll see. All right. Where are you? Here we go. Now, on Thursday, the Senate voted to confirm Mike Pompeo as our next Secretary of State. That's, of course, the chief diplomat of the United States. And, of course, Mike Pompeo is a controversial choice. And nonetheless, the Senate decided to confirm Pompeo with 57 to 42, basically with the help of course, some Democrats. And do you want to guess who they are? Well, you've got Heidi Heitkamp of North Dakota, Joe Donnelly of Indiana, Joe Manchin of West Virginia, Bill Nelson of Florida, Claire McCaskill of Missouri, and, of course, Doug Jones of Alabama. Wow, Doug Jones, what a great job that you're doing voting with Trump. Hey, is this what the resistance looks like? Now, these Democrats, of course, they're doing this for a reason. 5 of them are up for re-election in states where Trump had won a majority. So, of course, in order to make sure that they win, they will vote with Trump. So they're conservative Democrats. Now, that's disastrous because that means that we're going to end up getting, or we now have, a dangerous person like Pompeo as our chief diplomat. Again, a little problematic, and let me go into the reasons why. So here's a little background, right? Now, Pompeo is, of course, a very deeply conservative evangelical Christian, and he has said before that, quote, America has worshipped other gods and called it multiculturalism. We've endorsed perversion and called it an alternative lifestyle, referring, of course, to same-sex marriage and transgender rights. And he believes that politics is, quote, a never-ending struggle, that is, until the rapture. So we have a rapture believer now as our Secretary of State. Oh, well, that's fantastic. So this is a guy who believes that the big Jesus vacuum cleaner is going to hoover people up into heaven. Now, here's the thing, right? According to one of my evangelical friends, right, used to be a pastor, that's actually a complete misreading of the Bible. And that's something that a very small minority of Christians actually believe. It's not a thing in mainstream Christianity. Now, this belief in itself is dangerous because in order for the rapture to happen, it literally has to be the end times. So what has to happen for it to be the end times? Well, some very important foreign policy decisions. For one, of course, Jerusalem now has to be the new capital of Israel. So in order to do that, of course, you would have to destroy the mosque that's sitting on there and move it to, and move the capital and all that stuff to that area. Now, look, that's something that Muslims, Christians, and Jewish people hold very holy. Now, I don't think it's very holy. I think it's ridiculous superstition. But there are so many people that believe that that area is holy. That's why people are fighting over it. When you give it to Jewish people, well, there's going to be a lot of very, very angry Muslims. So they're not going to be happy about this. So again, that's one thing that has to happen. Another thing that has to happen is that all the Jews have to go back to Israel. Okay. Now, when they get there, they have to convert to Christianity or get destroyed when Jesus comes back. So there goes the Jews. They die. Now, the Muslims, of course, well, they're not evangelical, so they're going to die. The atheists die, the Buddhists die, everybody dies except for the people that get hoovered into heaven. This is insanity. So it sucks for everybody except for a very small portion of the American public. That portion who voted for Donald Trump overwhelmingly by 86%. They showed up to the polls and they said, we want this guy because we believe God wants this guy. And everything that he does is fantastic. Not only that, but everything that Mike Pompeo does is also awesome because we think that he's going to herald in the rapture. So that's what's dangerous about this guy, okay? They want Armageddon. They want to lead us to the destruction of basically humanity. Now, that's not going to happen, but what could happen is, as a result of this, is many disastrous Middle Eastern wars, which are going to kill hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people. So, look, now if Pompeo, and this is the question, if Pompeo is that much of a believer, will his beliefs have impacts on his foreign policy decisions? That is the danger, right? Well, let's see. Let's kind of dive into that. According to a recent report from TOIT Investigates, written by Ken Klippenstein, Pompeo had also already allegedly brought his rapture theology into the CIA. Remember, he was director of the CIA. Now, Michael Weinstein, founder of the Military Religious Freedom Foundation, that's a watchdog group that on issues of religious freedom in the military and in the intelligence community, told Klippenstein that Pompeo had talked about the rapture at the CIA during his tenure as director there. So this is a guy who was very open about this very specific belief. Like, yes, I believe that the rapture is going to happen. I believe that we need to get ready for that rapture and do whatever we can to bring it forward, to fight for it. And there's video of him saying that. Now, Weinstein has also told Klippenstein that his group had received complaints from personnel about Pompeo's introduction of this overtly religious behavior into the workplace, including those rapture references. Now they said, quote, "He is intolerant of anyone who isn't a fundamental Christian." So, oh boy. So anybody who doesn't share his fundamentalist beliefs is somebody that Pompeo will be very intolerant of. Well, that's not good if you're dealing with other nations who have different religions than you. For example, a lot of the countries in the Middle East. So, now, not only that, but the people that worked under him at the CIA that came to us were never confused. They never had time to be confused. They were shocked, and then they were scared shitless. So, that's what people who worked under him think about Mike Pompeo. Now, not only that, but according to congressional disclosure forms, Pompeo seems to have a very special interest in Israel. Well, if Israel is basically the linchpin of your belief system, we got to make sure that, of course, the capital of Israel is moved to Jerusalem so that we can get all the Jews back so we can start Armageddon, then yes, you would have a very special interest in that country. Now, in August of 2011, when Pompeo was still a member of the House, he and his wife took a week-long first-class trip to Israel, paid for and planned by the American Israel Education Foundation. Now, that came at a cost of $27,532. Now, that foundation happens to be affiliated with AIPAC. Now, that's one of the biggest lobbying groups in the United States. So they lobby a lot of our senators, a lot of our congressmen, and they end up, of course, helping pay for trips to Israel. Now, while Pompeo was there, he, of course, he basically fraternized a lot with the right-wing party of Israel. That's the Likud party, which is led by Benjamin Netanyahu. Now, one official in particular that he seemed to have hit it off with was Ron Dermer. Now, Dermer, of course, when he had visited, was an advisor to Netanyahu. Now, Dermer, of course, had come under criticism for accepting an award from an organization designated by the Southern Poverty Law Center as an anti-Muslim hate group. Now, that group was founded and is run by Frank Gaffney. Now, Gaffney, of course, is a far-right figure known for his rampant Islamophobia. In fact, this guy is so nuts that he believes that Grover Norquist, this is a guy that I would never defend or would never consider defending. He's the guy that makes everybody sign that anti-tax pledge. You will never, ever raise taxes, ever, on any corporation or any rich person. You will never raise taxes, right? So he's the guy who goes around and makes everybody sign that stupid, ridiculous pledge. Gaffney thinks that guy is a Muslim plant, that he is a member of the Muslim Brotherhood. You can't get any more cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs on that. Now, of course, Pompeo and Gaffney happen to be really good buddies. In fact, so much so that Gaffney has been on Mike Pompeo's radio show. Now, Pompeo told Gaffney on his show that he believes that there are organizations and networks here in the United States that are tied to radical Islam in deep and fundamental ways. He said they're not just in places like Libya and Syria and Iraq, but in places like Coldwater, Kansas, and small towns all throughout America. So understand what this means. This guy believes that there is creeping Sharia, right? The Muslims have taken over Coldwater. They're deep in Kansas. They're planning, like they got the sleeper cells of jihadists hanging out in rural America. That's, again, bonkers. But that's who this guy is. That's what he believes in. So as I said, he's knee-deep in anti-Muslim rhetoric, of course. He's also a friend of the right wing in Israel. Now, the right wing in Israel, unfortunately, tends to profit off the conflicts with the Palestinians, and conflicts, and enough war, basically. And And so far, right now, the government has been killing innocent Palestinian protesters. So Mike Pompeo's a friend of that. Not only that, but again, he believes in this ridiculous rapture theory. Now, look, I don't know if any of that will play out into his policy positions, and that's my biggest worry. Okay, with someone like Pompeo at the head, will we end up getting involved in more disastrous Middle Eastern wars in order to fulfill that prophecy, right? And again, that's the danger when you have fundamentalists, religious fundamentalists. It doesn't matter if it's Christian fundamentalist or Muslim fundamentalist, Jewish fundamentalist. It doesn't matter. Any fundamentalist that gets power obviously uses it to further their religion. Now, going back to the Democrats who actually confirmed this monster, that just shows you. And the reason that they're doing it, of course, is because, well, Trump won in my state, and I want to win re-election. That's it. That's why I'm going to go and I'm going to support these crazy people. It doesn't matter who it is. If Trump nominates them, it's more likely they're going to get my vote, and they're going to sail through, which is exactly what happened with Pompeo. Then it just shows you how these people put political expedience over the well-being of the country and possibly the world. Okay. All right. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to take a quick break. We'll be back. We got more stories here. So stay right here, and we will be right back. Around the Nation. Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. Around the Nation right here, TOT Nation. Jeff Waldorf here with you. So I want to give a shout out here to Samoset Sea Farm, who used the super chat. Thank you. That goes to help the show. Appreciate it. If you haven't already, please give us a share. Sharing is caring. Helps out a lot. All right. That said, a lot of interesting comments going on here. Getting ads to wish the Don happy birthday. That's hilarious. I have no control over the ads, but apparently I'm getting the shittiest ads ever. But at least I'm getting something, right? So, all right. Anyway, so let's get into the next story. A fascinating story about Democrats and their corruption. All right. So tape has been released of an interaction between Democratic leadership and a progressive running for office in Colorado's 6th district. Now, the person in question is Levi Tillman, and he is running in a Democratic primary against Jason Crow. So Tillman, of course, is an author, an inventor, and a former official with the Obama administration's Energy Department. Now, he's running on a platform, of course, Medicare for All, clean elections, combating climate change, free community college, and fighting economic inequality, and, of course, fighting against corporate monopolies. It sounds like a pretty progressive platform. And, look, I like it. Now, his opponent, Jason Crow, happens to be a corporate lawyer. Now, look, Crow also is like, hey, let's not take corporate PAC money. That's a good decision, of course, and running on gun control, but nothing about Medicare for All or anything like that. Now, I wonder who the Democratic establishment, who is very pro-business, pro-corporate, is going to back in this race. Well, we don't have to wonder. As you're going to hear, Steny Hoyer, who is the number 2 Democrat in the House behind Nancy Pelosi, is going to try and convince Tillman to drop out. Listen.
You would like me to get out of the race.
You keep saying I would like you to get out. And of course that's correct.
Yeah. I know you're fundraising for Crow.
Yeah.
You know?
I'm for Crow. I am for Crow because a judgment was made very early on. I didn't participate in the decision.
So your position is a decision was made, very early on before voters had a say. That's fine because that's the DCCC knows better than the voters of the 6th Congressional District, and we should line up behind that candidate.
That's certainly the consequence of our decision. There are 2 things I'd like you to consider. One may be easier than the other. First would be if you stay in the race. Frankly, I would hope you would not. I'll get to that. But if you stay in the race, it is not useful to the objective to tear down Crow. Crow's clearly the favorite. That doesn't mean he'll win. It just means he's the favorite.
So here is the number 2 Democrat in the House saying, hey, look, you might as well drop out. We've already chosen our candidate. So just end your campaign already. I'm telling you right now, this is what we've already had of a candidate. But, hey, if you decide to still run, which I strongly advise against, well, don't harm our candidate by tearing him down. Now, remember, from their perspective, anything that could be even remotely negative or even policy differences was considered by Democrats to be tearing them down. Oh, we can't do that. We can't make policy differences. No. You can't contrast yourself with policy. Oh, what you need to do is you need to make a case that the other guys are worse. That's what the Democrats are literally doing. They're like, well, we can't distinguish ourselves from each other, or we shouldn't distinguish ourselves from each other. No, we need to run on the Republicans are bad. But wait, how is that going to energize people to turn out to vote for you if all you're saying is the other guys suck? Yeah, but what are you going to do? What's your position? Well, we don't have to have a position because Donald Trump is bad and the Republicans are bad. Well, that's not a way to win an election. Now, and look, when it comes to the primaries, what's the point of having a primary if you can't distinguish yourself from your opponent? If you can't point out your differences from your opponent? It doesn't make any sense. But see, that's the whole point. They're like, no, we don't want you to do that because then we're afraid that you're going to vote for the other guy. The guy that we have not chosen. The guy that's not going to be business friendly. And that's the whole point. They want somebody who's business and corporate friendly. Somebody who, will take the donor money. Somebody who will do what the donors say. Someone who will vote in line with the Democratic establishment. And that's the problem here. Now, Tillman, he's going to respond to this, and you're going to love his response. Take a listen.
So before we go any further on that, Crow is the favorite, in no small part, Congressman Hoyer, because the DCCC not only put its finger on the scale, but started jumping on the scale very early on. And I'm born and raised a Democrat. I mean, it's undemocratic to have a small elite select someone and then try to rig the primary against the other people running. And that is basically what's been happening.
That's exactly what's been happening. He's 100% correct. And look, later on, Hoyer, and you should listen to the tape, I'll have the link in the description, says, yeah, look, we're shoveling money at Crow. You know why? Because that's what we do. That's how it's always done. We choose people ahead of time. We make the decision who to back before the voters. We then dump a whole shitload of money on them. And then we tell other challengers to either get out or, if you decide to stay in, don't harm our candidate. Because we know they're going to win because we've already preordained their win. That's how you rig a primary, folks. And again, here's Stoyer saying, look, that's the way we've always done this. That's the way it happens. That's the way it's done. And look, again, you should listen to the entire exchange. It is incredibly illuminating. But look, to those who say, oh my God, there's no rigging of the primary. No, this is what happened in 2016. The establishment chose Hillary Clinton to be their favorite long before the voters had a chance to even choose. So, as a result of that, she had all the advantages going forward. And do you think that didn't have an impact on what happened in the primary? How many votes she got in the primary? How many votes Bernie Sanders got in the primary? Of course that had an impact. Again, she had everything ahead of time. Superdelegate support. She had a lot of the money. She had a lot of the leadership, or the majority of the leadership that was already behind her. People in places that could affect things like, for example, debate schedules to make sure that any competitor was not able to get their message out. That's how you rig a primary. And the problem here is that is the complete opposite of having a democracy. So the irony here is Democrats, right, calling it the Democratic Party, when ironically it's not democratic at all. There's no democracy in it. I mean, why even have a primary in the first place if you're going to just choose someone ahead of time? I don't give the Republicans a lot of credit, but when it comes to the primary, they actually let their voters choose. Now, again, a lot of their voters are just insane. I mean, they choose insane candidates. But at least they have democracy. At least they believe, at least when it comes to their primaries, in some form of democracy. So, but of course, you could probably argue that, well, that's how you end up with horrible people like Ted Cruz and Donald Trump. But again, their voters are already monsters. And if we actually do this on the Democratic side, if we do this on the progressive side, then we might actually get candidates who actually give a fuck about the people. But you have, of course, power brokers like the number 2 Democrat in the House not wanting that. And you got the leadership that says, nope, we don't want that at all. Now, it is quite obvious that they have not learned anything since 2016. In fact, when this broke, you're going to love this. Nancy Pelosi decided to weigh in on this. Guess what she said? She said, quote, I don't see anything inappropriate in what Mr. Hoyer was engaged in. A conversation about the realities of life in the race as to who can make the general election. Oh, so it's the reality that we're just basically picking and choosing candidates to support in the primary way before the voters have had a chance. Again, a primary is supposed to be the voters choose, and then the party lines up behind the people after after the people the voters have chosen. That's not what's happened. The establishment has lined up behind somebody before the voters even have a chance to make sure that that person advances to a general because of what they think will end up being better. Just trust us. We know better. The DCCC, the DNC, we know better than you. We know better than the voters what you want and what will actually win in a general election. Really. Well, you didn't know better in 2016. Lost to an orange clown. And in the 8 years under President Obama, you lost over 1,000 seats. Maybe the reality is that you fucking suck at this. Maybe the reality is that you have no idea what the American people want because you're too busy figuring out ways to rig a fucking primary and serving your wealthy ass donors. Maybe that's the reality. It's no wonder you lose. Bunch of losers. Goddamn establishment Democrats are the worst. Liberals have the edge. Look at any poll. They have the edge on nearly every policy position. And yet, the Democrats still continue to lose. Why? Because it shows you that the Democrats are paid to lose. They choose people who don't back majority policy positions. They choose the weakest Democrats and they shower them with money. Why? So they can lose. They are paid to lose. They're weak on purpose. It's a good thing now that we have groups that are coming for these weak Democrats in primaries. You want to back somebody in the primary and stack it against them? Well, you know what? We know your tricks now. Okay? We know everything that you're doing. We know exactly how to counter that. We know how to fight that now. Because we've seen it before. And that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to keep fighting these people until losers like Pelosi and Hoyer and all the rest of these corrupt corporate Democrats get kicked out of office and replaced by real progressives. People who actually care. People who actually serve the people, the voters, and not their donors. That's the only way that we're going to ever get progress. Okay. God damn, I hate corporate Democrats. Piss me off. They piss me off more than Republicans. Look, Republicans, we expect them to be horrific, right? And we know they're horrific. That's why when they say and do horrific things, that doesn't surprise us at all. But when the Democrats do it, when the Democrats are actually more undemocratic than Republicans when it comes to their primary process, that's what pisses us off. It's not that we don't despise what Republicans stand for or what they do and what they say. We do. It's just that what upsets us more is the corruption in our own house, in the Democrats' house. The people who are actually supposed to stand up for people, who are supposed to be right on the issues. We got to get rid of these corporate Democrats, man. Okay. Get a little angry there. Let's move on. Speaking of Republicans, let's go to Paul Ryan. Good old Lion Ryan. Okay. Now, Paul Ryan claims to be a good Christian. Claims. Now, it seems like his policy ideas don't exactly match up to what it means to be a good Christian. For example, his votes to take away health care for millions of Americans, try to destroy the ACA, or to take away Medicaid, or to privatize Social Security, and eliminate these so-called entitlement programs, which, by the way, you know why they're entitlements? Because you're entitled to it. You pay into it, that's your money. Now, not only that, but the newest plans to get rid of welfare and to give giant tax cuts to the rich. Now, all this stuff is actually incredibly cruel to people who are poor. that's something that Christians are supposed to care about. Now, his latest move should also inform you of his supposed Christian values. Now, apparently Speaker Ryan, according to different news reports, has now fired the chaplain of the House of Representatives. Well, that's interesting. Now, this is Reverend Patrick Conroy. Now, Conroy is a Jesuit priest who has served in that position since 2011. Now, apparently he had sent a letter, which was obtained by NBC News, which read, "As you have requested, I hereby offer my resignation as the 60th chaplain of the United States House of Representatives. The position is one which I did not seek nor strive to assume, but I have seen it as a blessing, and I have considered it one of the great privileges of my life." Okay, so look, he's stepping down. What's wrong with that? Well, here's what's wrong is the reason. So let me get into the question of why. So right now, we really don't know the reason. And Paul Ryan hasn't given a reason. And look, Conroy himself has no idea. In fact, he tells the Washington Post that, quote, "I was asked to resign. That was clear. As for why, that is unclear. So I don't know why he decided to ask me to resign. I did so because, again, I never really wanted the job to begin with, but I was happy to serve. And then, so I'm not going to fight this, but nonetheless, I have no idea why he fired me, why he asked me to resign." So he said, "I certainly wasn't giving anything in writing." And he said, "Catholic members on both sides, because of this, happen to be furious. In fact, I've got a couple of them here. Representative Joe Crowley said the move was outrageous. Walter Jones, who's a Republican from North Carolina, said it's just a sad commentary in America in the House that is supposed to be here, or supposed to be the House of the people. If we want to protect freedom of speech, a prayer here, then where are we going to protect it?" So he's obviously framing this as a First Amendment issue, which is an interesting tack to take, but nonetheless. Now, furthermore, Conroy said he received the news from Ryan's chief of staff. So here's what happened. Father Conroy recalled being told, "The speaker would like your resignation." And he, of course, complied. So, with that out of the way, let's get into some speculation about what actually happened. During a prayer about the GOP tax bill that he offered on the House floor in November of 6 of 2017, before the legislation was passed and signed into law by President Trump, he said this, quote, "As legislation on taxes continues to be debated this week and next, may all members be mindful that the institutions and structures of our great nation guarantee the opportunities that have allowed some to achieve great success, while others continue to struggle." He said, "May their efforts these days guarantee that there are not winners and losers under new tax laws, but benefits balanced and shared by all Americans." So that's what he said on the tax law. He's basically saying, look, I hope this tax bill is fair to everybody and not just the rich. Well, we know that thanks to different studies, CBO estimates, and all that, that a majority of the benefits of the tax cuts did not go to all Americans. It was nowhere near balanced. In fact, 83% of the gains ended up going to the very rich and corporations. Now, who would be against that? Other than, of course, progressives, liberals, a majority of the American people. It would also happen to be Jesuit priests. Now, Conroy, as I said before, is a Jesuit priest. Do you know who else is a very well-known Jesuit? That would be Pope Francis. Now, Pope Francis has made a few headlines talking about the evils of unfettered capitalism. And how, of course, the world has made an idolatry of money and Wall Street. I think we might have an explanation here of why Paul Ryan is not exactly in favor of this specific priest. Now, I want to give you a couple of specific quotes here from the Pope to kind of show you what the Jesuits sort of believe in, since there seems to be a little bit more of a liberal branch of Catholicism. Now, Francis said, quote, "Behind all this pain, death, and destruction, there's the stench of what Basil of Caesarea called the dung of the devil." Oh, that's interesting. He said, "An unfettered pursuit of money rules. The service of the common good is left behind. Once capital becomes an idol and guides people's decisions, once greed for money presides over the entire socio-economic system, it ruins society. It condemns and enslaves men and women. It destroys human fraternity. It sets people against one another. And as we clearly see, it even puts at risk our common home. So that is the biggest, I guess the most well-known Jesuit talking about, hey, look, our socioeconomic system in America, and yes, he was making these comments, I believe, in either Bolivia or Brazil. I believe it was Bolivia, talking about global capitalism, saying that it's basically what happens as a result of the of unfettered capitalism is the stench of the dung of the devil. So, look, man, I think that would be a pretty accurate description. I may not be a religious person, but there is something here that stinks about our economic system and capitalism all across the world. The exploitation that's going on. The wars for profit, for oil, for example, in the Middle East. Things like that. So, yeah, I would agree. Now, it just so happens that the Jesuit teachings and these specific quotes, not only from Father Conroy and, of course, Pope Francis, are not in line with the Catholic teachings that Paul Ryan believes in. In fact, about a week after that prayer, Father Conroy said he had heard from the speaker's office. He said a staffer came down and said, "We are upset with this prayer. You are getting too political." Oh, no, you're getting too political. You're getting too political, guys. You gotta tone down the politics, right? And he says, "It suggests to me that there are members who have talked to him about being upset with that prayer." Oh, so Republican members very upset about that prayer? I wonder which ones. Could it be like most of them, all of them? The ones who absolutely love tax cuts for the rich and getting rid of entitlements and welfare programs that benefit the poor? Now, he said, shortly after when he saw Mr. Ryan himself, Father Conroy said the speaker told him, "Padre, you just got to stay out of politics." Now, here's his answer. Quote, "That is what I have tried to do for 7 years. It doesn't sound political to me. If you're a hospital chaplain, you're going to pray about health. If you're a chaplain of Congress, you're going to pray about what Congress is doing." And again, Congress has a huge impact in passing policy that impacts economic inequality. For example, these tax cuts, the Trump tax cuts, have increased economic inequality. 83% of the gains, as I said before, went to the rich. And of course, most of the companies that have gotten that money have already used it not on creating jobs or raising wages, but on buying back their own stocks on the stock market, therefore inflating the stock market while actually creating no actual real-world value. So that would appear to be a little bit of a problem. So look, on that prayer, I've got no problem with that. But see, Paul Ryan doesn't want your prayers if they're about helping poor people. And it's because Paul Ryan doesn't care about helping poor people. His version of Christianity, I believe it's Calvinism, is one where if you're poor because you're an immoral person. And if you're an immoral person, well, then you're not deserving of help. You're not deserving of assistance. You're not deserving of anything. You deserve to wallow in your poverty until you get right with the Lord. That's what these people believe in. No, if you're poor, if you're struggling financially in the richest country in the world, then you deserve to be poor. It must be something that you're doing wrong. You're not working hard enough. You're not doing enough to earn that money. You're not good enough for that money. You were born poor. You deserve to stay poor. Unlike me. Because, it's the irony about Paul Ryan is that he collected Social Security benefits until he was at least 18. And used that money to get an education. So he used his survivor benefits, Social Security survivor benefits, in order to get ahead. And now that he's gotten ahead, I'm pretty sure he believes that, no, you don't understand. I'm a moral person. That's why I've done so well. That's why I got that money. That's why I got that head start. Because I'm just a more moral person. But you, all you other people out there that are getting these entitlements, well, you're not moral people. You're stuck in poverty. That's because you deserve it because you're not a good person. You're not a moral person. That's what Paul Ryan believes. Which seems to be obviously the opposite of what Jesus actually taught. Jesus actually taught that wealth and how you get wealth is not a good thing. He's the kind of person that would, walk up in the temple with a whip and start whipping the bankers. I think we need to go back to that Jesus. But now, anyway, that said, I'm not a religious person, so I'm just going to say it. Why do we even have a chaplain in Congress to begin with? Don't we have a separation of church and state? Shouldn't we have that? Again, your religion, even if you do use it to do good, which obviously this guy seems to be, it still doesn't belong in government. And again, there's a lot of people who use their religion to do good, but it doesn't mean it should be in government. So I'm just going to end it with that. Okay. One more story here. And we're gonna leave you with a feel-good story. You want to talk about doing good? Here we go. Now, here's an update to the story about James Shaw Jr. Now, he is, of course, the hero that disarmed a gunman that opened fire at a Waffle House in Tennessee. So, look, after that happened, of course, he was able to save people's lives by disarming the gunman. But afterwards, he gave some interviews and was like, "Hey, look, I'm not a hero. Okay, I'm not a hero. I just did what I was going to do to save my life, and I'm going to keep it 100% with you. I'm not a hero. I saved my own life, and because look, when you're in that situation, it's very likely that you would do the same thing." He's like, I want to live, and that's what guided my decision. Now, I disagree with him. I think that he is a hero. I think he did exactly what needed to do, what needed to happen, and of course, in result of saving his own life, he also saved the lives of possibly everyone else in that Waffle House. So, again, I think he's a hero. Now, he has done something that is even more awesome. After, that press conference and all that stuff, he decided to launch a GoFundMe campaign in order to help the victims of and the families of that shooting. Now, he originally set a $15,000 goal. He's going to raise that money. He's going to give it to the families, right? Well, it turns out that he has raised a lot more than $15,000. In fact, currently, it is just over $170,000. Damn. Now, it's not just him, of course. Restaurant officials in Antioch could also pledge to donate all their proceeds for the next month to the families of the deceased and living victims. That's also a great thing. And, of course, there's another GoFundMe campaign that was started by a man from New York that has also raised more than $180,000 from more than 5,000 donors. So there's a lot of help going for the victims of this shooting, which is wonderful. And I think it'd be more wonderful if we actually prevented the mass shootings to prevent people from not only having to go through this, as James Shaw Jr. had done, but also having to raise money for the victims. Nonetheless, given what we have now, given the way our system and our society is, it's at least good that we have people that are so incredibly generous as to give their money to a cause that is incredibly worthy. So there are good people in this, and in these, as I said, the donor from New York awesome. James Shaw Jr., awesome. And of course, the restaurant that is also donating their proceeds, awesome. So it just shows you that there is still some good in this world, even if sometimes it doesn't seem like it. Okay. That's all I've got for today. I think, wow. I mean, we're going to go a little bit longer, but we've got a couple extra minutes at the end here. So here's what I'm going to do. Okay. I'll take a couple questions from the chat real quick. So we'll just, we'll end it out with that. So if you guys have any questions for me in the chat room, I'll be happy to take them for the next couple minutes. So ask away. I don't think that's a good question. But a funny one. How come shooters have bad hair? Well, if you're going to go and shoot up a place, you're not going to be too worried about how you look, I guess. Again, I don't think that was an actual real question, but nonetheless, fun times. Yes, I am wearing pants. But you'd never know if I wasn't. So that's interesting. But yes, I wear... I actually also have legs. I don't know if you were aware of that either. Because obviously you would have to have legs to wear pants. When is World War III starting? Hopefully never. Hopefully. Thoughts on God of War? That's a good question. I love it. So I just went through... Yes, there's another question related to that. Last night, I finished the main story. So I still have some side stuff to do. I still have some realms to go and explore fully. For example, Muspelheim, and what is the other one? The Realm of Fog. I forget what that one is. But it is an excellent game. An excellent ending, so I was very satisfied. This is something that I even considered, like, because normally when I get a game, I'm not sure if I'm going to, like, buy the DLC, right? Well, in this case, I actually went looking to see if there was going to be a DLC. It turns out, no, they never planned on it. So, like, we put everything in the game that we wanted to put in the game. We might do it in the future, I guess if there's enough people that want more stuff, but... we never planned on doing a DLC, so I actually give them even more credit for doing that. So yes, amazing game, and it's highly, highly recommended. Will I consider doing a story on Fukushima? Yes, I do. I will consider doing that. Yes, gaming rig. It's a little bit old at this point. But for God of War, that's a PS4 exclusive, so I have a PS Pro or PS4 Pro. Great investment. For my gaming rig, I have, let's see, 16 gigs of RAM, GTX 1070, 4 gig. I know that, like, the 1080 is probably the newest and the best, and a quad-core Intel processor. I can't remember which one. i7, that's it. It's an i7. It's pretty decent, pretty good processor. I saw another question on Monster Hunter World. So I'm, like, weird about multiplayer games because I actually bought Monster Hunter World for PlayStation, but I, like, haven't really played too much of it. So I'm like, oh man, I gotta team up with people. Isn't that weird? I'm, like, anti-teaming up with people. And it's not because I hate it. It's because I have this weird thing where I'm like, I don't want to let my teammates down if I suck or if I screw up. So that's like that weird thing about me. Anders reminds me, yes, I can upgrade my mythic to 1000. I do. I have enough materials to do that, but I actually want a third legendary, so I'd rather do that. Microplastic, that's an interesting thing to look at as well. No, I actually build my own computer, so I don't like buy. The only pre-made computers I buy are laptops, because working on laptops is a bitch. I know. I once replaced the screen on a laptop, and I hated every single moment. It sucked. Now, it's probably a lot better now that I have a really tiny tool set. So you get like a bunch of tiny screwdrivers, and it makes it a lot easier. But nonetheless, it was frustrating as hell. So I don't plan to do that anymore. So there's so many. Let's see. Yeah, I have to go back and look at my PS4 gaming tag. So, but I played a little bit Monster Hunter though, and I'm not sure what class I like on it, or what loadout I should say. I'm like a sword shield guy. Do I know how to solder? Poorly. So I've done it before. I had a computer class where we would solder simple circuit boards, and yeah, I did. Did I play Kingdom Come Deliverance? I have. I actually have it. I'm at the part where you have to escape the castle, and I just haven't gotten to it. I have a very limited amount of time, so, and I tend to end up going. I don't know. I just lost my train of thought there because I'm reading questions. But I ended up focusing too much on MMOs. So, and then of course probably answers a couple of other questions of why I don't get any sun, because I'm inside. I'm doing this all day. So, anyway, so thanks guys for your questions. I appreciate that. Thank you guys. I'm going to head out here because I got some stuff to do. But hey, thank you for asking the questions. Thank you for supporting the show. If you haven't already, please share. Please go through, like our videos. And look, if you want to do the super chat, or if you want to support us, super chat or patreon.com/TYTNation. All right, everybody. Thanks. And we will see you next Monday. We'll see you on Monday. Have an awesome weekend. We'll see you then. Have a great weekend. Love you guys. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, guys.